A little after 9, I'll call the meeting to order. I'm going to change things a little bit. The roll call I'll do first. All board members are present with the exception of Anthony Owens, who has an illness in his family. Secondly, I'd like to go around the room. Everybody introduce themselves as we're on live. Dan, you're up first.
Morning, everybody. I'm Dan Schweigart with the real estate department at National Grid. And I'm here today to talk about an easement we'd like to procure for the Albany Water Board.
James Rizal, Ward Member. Joe Coffey, Water Commissioner.
I'm Bill Kahn, Rate Consultant.
Kim Saba from Three Point.
Ezra Philogene, Engineer.
Sarah Terrell, HR Generalist. Laura Gulfo, Council.
Bill Simcoe, Deputy Commissioner.
Steve Mercier, Marketing and Communications.
Chris Powers, Director of Fiscal Operations.
Rachel Johnson, Vice Chair.
And I'm Chuck Copeland, Chairman of the board. I'm going to skip the approval of the minutes, but we'll have a little bit of discussion about that. We have public comment period. I'm here for that. We have a special attendee. Bill, you want to introduce this?
Yes, Dan is here in regard to National Grid. They have a project going on in the town of Bethlehem. And they want to have access across the Albany Water Board property by Delaware Plaza in order to get access for heavy equipment to do a project at the Ellesmere substation. And we already have that license agreement and easements with two property owners there in regard to access only. It's really a parking area, access area around Delaware Plaza. So Laura has been looking at some of the existing agreements that we have. National Grid really is as a construction project and not necessarily for regular accessing the substation. There's another entrance that they have for it. So, but they're I guess proceeding with some approvals through the town of Bethlehem, and they needed to get this easement squared away. At least have some indication that it's moving forward with the discussions in the town. So I'll let you describe Dan, what we're talking about here.
Okay. I appreciate it. Thank you, Bill. Again, my name's Dan Schweigart. I'm with the real estate department at National Grid. Down in the lower right of the map drawing there, you can see where our Ellesmere substation is located. That substation is somewhat aged and is we're proposing a rebuild of that substation to support the customer base in the Bethlehem area. It's an overdue critical improvement to that substation. So we submitted to the town of Bethlehem in January. What you can't see on this exhibit is the existing access road off of Mason Road. It's just to the right, somewhere in the margin where the Mason Road would come, and that's a a typical access road. So during the planning process, the town of Bethlehem engineers are reviewing our plans, and they said, well, your access road off of Mason Road does not meet fire code. The lane is too narrow, there's trees, it needs grading, there's enough, the slope, the gradient on the road doesn't meet fire code. And so there's a gate that is being used.
Why don't you stand up?
Okay, the gate here, at the substation is what we have been using historically. Our crews, our technicians typically enter through here and enter into this gate. And it was only through the planning review process that they found that we did not have legal access to that gate. So through the planning and design portion of the project, we spoke with this landowner here on Delmar Mall Properties, and he's cooperative and said that yes, they've been using our property for access. And I would like to see it memorialized and permanentized. So we've had discussions with him about where we would go across his access, or his property rather. We had proposed, coming in off of Delaware here and coming down the side of his building. That didn't work for him. So we leaned over towards the Albany Water Board property, which is here. So the additional constraints and restrictions and conditions that the town is putting on us is that this access road not only, does it need to meet the fire code, but it also has to be permanent and it has signage. And so the town is requiring us to make this access road fire code compliant. So not only do we need an access easement, but the access easement needs to be, up to code. So that creates a little bit of a problem for us. I'm not sure. I know that in this exhibit, you can see there are some parking lanes here painted into the pavement. The town is requiring us to remove those parking spaces to ensure that this lane is basically always open as fire code compliant. So what we're asking of the water board is to grant us this easement 20 feet wide, comes down and makes a 90-degree turn here where it enters onto this adjacent property to get us to our gate. And the reason that we are pursuing it as opposed to using our existing road over here is because the existing road has a curve in it, number one, and it has some slope to it, which makes it very difficult to upgrade it to meet fire code. And so the town prefers this, and he had offered to say, would you prefer us to upgrade our road or pursue this easement? The Albany Water Board and the Delmar Mall properties in the town preferred us to use this entrance for fire code reasons. Additionally, during this project, we are also going to be bringing in loads of heavy equipment, transformers, et cetera, et cetera. So this is a paved road, paved area, and it's more suitable for the delivery of those materials. If it's approved, once we do begin using it, we will not use it that much. It's very, maybe a couple times a month, we'll be in and out of there, but we do not plan to block the road or park equipment there. After construction, it'll just be there as an access to the substation.
Any questions, Bill, you wanna comment?
And National Grid proposes to get an appraisal in regard to this permit easement.
Yes, if that's what, and I had spoken with a couple of other people, Dave Sands and Bill, I believe you'd worked with before, he said that that's the typical procedure for the water board is to get an appraisal on that portion of the property and use those figures.
As Bill mentioned, we just have to take a look at the other agreements that we have in that area. Can I just ask a question about your access road on the other side? Is that over a property owned by National Grid, or is that you also have an easement over and?
No, that's fee-owned property. Here, this is a fee-owned parcel. It's not an easement because it's houses the substation. It's a fee-owned parcel. And the access is direct to Mason Road, which is a public right of way.
Okay,
So we do have legal access into the substation from Mason Road. But the problem was that our stormwater plans, our SWIP, our engineering plans, the grading, even after we anticipate payment for this easement as well as this easement next to it. Overall, National Grid says this is what they want. They said the other access road is just not suitable. It's not suitable for emergency access.
Bethlehem said that.
That's, yes.
Yeah,
that's
saying
right.
that.
Yeah, but the National Grid prefers it as well. Once presented with it, they said it is better.
and the town is looking for you to get a permanent easement, a license agreement wouldn't satisfy the town needs.
No, they want a permanent easement.
Any questions, comments? Thank you very much, we'll follow up.
Thanks, Dan.
We'll follow up. You're welcome to stay or you can go back to work, your choice.
Well, I think I'd probably just go back to work, even though I find this interesting.
Keep our rates down, that's it.
All right, well, thank you very much.
Thank you.
We'll be in touch.
Next on the agenda is Kim Saban. Welcome. Thank you.
Hello.
You come up from Poughkeepsie?
I did. I was here yesterday to speak with the authority, so I'm here today to talk to the board. So the big news that I brought to your attention yesterday was that Gray Point is merging with Saturday Partners. This announcement was made a couple of weeks ago and it's set to close next week. It's a big deal for us. We're a small RIA and Saturday is a large RIA with national presence. Saturday has currently an office in Albany. It's in Saratoga. We also have an office in Saratoga, so I think we're keeping both spaces. In terms of change, there should be very little change. I'm still gonna be on the institutional team where our focus is the capital region and servicing and growing our clients. So nothing's gonna change from that aspect. I'm just gonna give a brief overview of the markets. It's because everyone wants to know what's happening and everyone looks at their 401ks and are happy with the results. I'll touch upon the report at the end. So last week or 2 weeks ago, the Fed met and reduced interest rates by 25 basis points. This was considered a risk management cut. Powell came out and he speaks after the meetings and told the markets that they have two mandates, price stability and full employment, and employment has been showing some weakness, so they thought that this will kind of help get them ahead of the curve. He did not forecast any path to future rate cuts, although the markets has priced in 2 to 3 cuts in the next couple of quarters. So we'll have to see what actually plays out. The data has been relatively strong. So the market kind of ignores the strong data and just hopes that the Fed will continue to cut. The economy is showing some signs of slowdown, but still is resilient. GDP had another revision yesterday. It's still at 2.1. You may recall that first quarter, the GDP number was negative, mostly impacted by all the automakers bringing in cars ahead of the tariffs. So that made it go negative. Not considered a recession unless we have 2 back-to-back quarters of negative growth. So basically what's happening is the consumer is remaining resilient. And I was talking to Joe about this earlier this morning. The baby boomers are really pushing the spending. They're retiring. And when they look at their wealth, the market has served them very well over the last decade or so, as well as the wealth effect, because all of the home prices have increased so much that many of them are, I don't know what the average price is around here, but they're selling their homes and they have significant gains. I know if they want to go someplace, if they were to buy something new, it's still at a significant increase, but they're really pushing the markets and it's helping. There's still a lot of people in the economy though that the lower income levels that are still struggling and living paycheck to paycheck, as we hear all the time. The bull market is still intact. What's happening is because there's so much cash on the sidelines, still $7 trillion, that whenever we see a slight pullback in the equity markets, there's many buyers that want to go in. So we really haven't seen much of a change. We've seen red a couple days, but then you usually see green. There is no recession on the horizon. There's a saying that, the markets don't grow to the sky and bull markets end when there's a recession. Well, that isn't forecast at the moment. There was an increase in the probability of a recession earlier in the year because of the tariffs, but none of that has really played out. So the bull market continues. The only thing that's really going to be impacting us over the next week is the potential government shutdown. And both sides are standing pretty firm that neither one will budge. So we'll see. Usually in the last hours of the, the clock, they come to some agreement. Democrats want to kick the can a month. Republicans want to kick the can a couple months. So we'll see what they come up with. But the markets are really not paying much attention to it. I guess it just happens so often that they know that they'll work, they'll resolve their differences. The report, which you see on the screen, the board has $12 million in their operating accounts. They do have 2 accounts which are considered their excess funds. The one, so those that they total about $10 million. Yesterday when I was at the authority meeting, I know there's some bills coming through for projects, so we'll see how those accounts will be utilized perhaps over the balance of the year. The report contains, the accounts, a detail of the 2 breakdowns of the excess funds, which is on page 2. The transfer schedule, which is all your bills are paid monthly. And the last few pages of the report is the transactions of all the payments that we made year to date. Does anybody have any questions?
I do.
Yes.
What will happen if we have a shutdown next Wednesday?
Well, they
Which looks,
always try to scare everybody and that there'll be just complete devastation, They're not gonna pay Social Security. That's not true. The
No,
checks
that's
go out,
Yeah.
the checks go out. There's no impact to that. Government employees are furloughed, so they don't have to go to work. But when an agreement is reached, they usually get their jobs back, they're reinstated as well as their back pay. So there's really no impact. I know that, I never get political in meetings. I don't have, I'm in the middle of the road. I know Trump has been, he has way too much to say. And the only thing I will say is I wish he would not say as much because it really scares people. He's saying that they have to prepare for cuts and all these cuts that he wants done. I don't believe any of that. I think this country has a spending problem and they're not facing it. They're not cutting back. They're not making the cuts they need to. So much of the budget of our government is essential services. So it's really hard to make cuts. Defense and essential services. So we've been on this path for a long time. Our debt just continues to grow and grow and grow. And someday it's going to become an issue when we can't find people to buy our debt. But right now, that isn't a problem. So they can continue to kick the can. It's sad. It's sad the way our government operates.
any other questions or comments? Thanks for coming on.
You're welcome.
Thanks for all the
Thanks
good work too. We
Nice
really
to see
appreciate
you.
what Great Pine has done for us.
Reach out if you have any questions and I'll see you next quarter.
Okay, great.
That's so.
Thanks, Ken.
Thank you, Ken.
Joe, you have want to introduce Ron?
Kyle is,
I will.
he's a, yes, trailblazer.
I'll see if we can come see you.
Yeah,
at the end of the year.
that'd be great. Thanks, Ken. I was telling Kim earlier that her son Kyle was one of our first engineering interns. This was a few years ago. Our IT guy came in and did some work with us on water audits and things like that. And so I was telling her that he's the trailblazer of our engineering interns, because now we seem like we had 1 or 2 from RIT or somewhere else almost continuously. And they've done big help. They're a big help for the work that we do. They fill some gaps in and actually you're doing things that we probably wouldn't have been able to do otherwise. So it's been a pretty special time. I have one anecdote I got to share with you about Kim and Fidelity. So when we first started doing the Fidelity accounts, we wanted to get the online reports. Tom Dufresne at the time was our CFO, didn't have a Fidelity account. I got one. Let me
I'll log in and how we can do it and get it to go to so we get the order for reports online. So I log in, and about a week later, I log in again, and I had like $20 million in my account. I'm like, hey, this is pretty good. Unfortunately, 19.5 of that wasn't mine. So that, we soon had to work with Kim to get some adjustments made, so I wasn't looking at that online, giving my wife a false sense of security. So I'm actually starting to worry about where the 20 million is. So we do want to do a special, some recognition for employees. We tend to do this, like to get a presentation once in a while at a board meeting. And we want to try to make a more normal agenda item to recognize some of our employees. In this case, we got an employee who's retiring after 24 years of service. Rod Lonsbury. Rod's going to retire. We have a little certificate for him. Rod, what did you do when you first got here to the War Department?
When I first arrived, I was, labor was considered. They didn't have security block.
Yeah, so you were here when we kind of switched to, they hit the switch on 9/11.
Or 9/11.
Yeah, yeah, so 9/11, the department really engaged in a very expensive security operation, which was unprecedented, I guess, at the time. And I think at that time, when we kicked that switch, we wound up having about 30 people, I think might have been patrol guards, etc. Good number. So over the years, Rod has worked up to the point where he has been the supervisor in the field of all of our security guards, done a great job for us, and just want to take a moment to thank you for all the work that you've done, recognize your service, and wish you some good luck on the end. So Chuck, you and I grab a photo with Rod, give yours. First time I saw Robert.
How you been, Chuck?
Good to see you. Steady and roll.
Three, two, one. Perfect. Great.
Thanks, Rod.
Thanks, Rod.
Thank you. I go back.
Enjoy myself.
Yeah.
Oh, I did. I'm gonna miss it a lot.
Not for nothing, but you still can't fish in the alcove.
They took all my keys yesterday.
All right. But at least you know where it is, so thank you. You can stay if you want, but you probably want to exit.
If you don't mind.
Not at all.
That's usually the popular entrance, so thanks, buddy.
Thank you, Rod.
Enjoy. So we have a couple of, new employees, that I just wanted to introduce. We're gonna ask them to stay, because it gives them a flavor as to hear the reports, of all the things that kind of go on in the department. A lot of times you get siloed, engineering guys are looking at the projects they do. We don't always see what's going on at the water plant, vice versa. So this is an opportunity to get a little bit of a wide description of everything that goes on in the report. So let me first introduce Ezra Village.
Yes.
Village, this came out of, had recently worked in a consulting firm. You want to spend a couple minutes and just give the folks here a little bio?
Sure. So I was born and raised in Massachusetts, grew up just outside of the Boston area. I've spent the first 18 years of my life, Massachusetts, love home, but following high school graduation, I moved to Troy to go to RPI, excellent engineering school. And then from there, I spent some time in New York City as a construction inspector. And then I moved up in 2018 as a consultant working for various firms around the upstate New York region. I am a passionate man when it comes to water and wastewater engineering. I feel like I'm home here working for the city of Albany. And I'm looking forward to kind of working for the people of Albany and helping improving their lives.
So it's around RQI, we are slowly taking over the water department.
Yes.
So you, me and Justin are gonna conquer the world. So Isram has really the background that fits right in with all the things that we're doing. We're looking for someone who had both the water and the wastewater background. So we're already kind of jumping into a lot of things that we're working on. So welcome to the water department. Glad to have you on board. Our next special guest, Mahmoud Al-Farsi, has been with us a little bit longer than Ezra. Graduated Albany sustainability, and so it kind of fills a little special gap that we're looking to do a little bit more, pay a little more attention on with resilience, sustainability. We want to make sure we incorporate that in all of our projects, but to start with, as all entry-level engineers, we got the site plan reviews and the things that are less exciting, as Bill and I will talk about. And you're gonna give a little bit of a presentation later on. We're gonna talk about the Lincoln Park Learning Garden. And one of the certifications that Rockwood has picked up, we're gonna actually employ that and try to do an application for something at the Learning Garden. But a little bit of a bio on your end to start with.
Yeah, I moved to Albany in the 2020. I came here as an international student from a different background. And I chose to do environmental and sustainable engineering at U Albany because I wanted just to follow a similar path as my father, because my father did some work in the water section back home. So I just wanted to follow a similar path. And I did a couple of research during my career here related to water quality, CSO, and the PFAS. And I think those experience really helped me to be prepared for this role. And during my 4 years or 5 years in Albany, I really loved the area. I spent almost my adulthood here, and I'm really happy to serve the people of Albany and provide good quality of water.
Glad to have you here, and I think, it's been
Yeah.
very difficult to fill some of these engineering positions over the past 2 or 3 years. I mean, you've really been posting and trying. If you hit the jackpot with these two guys, so I'm pretty excited about them on board. And hopefully we'll be able to give you a little bit of a foundation today about some of the other activities that are going on.
Rebecca must be thrilled that you guys are here.
Rebecca's walking with a smile.
And they all have new offices too, so before you leave, take a look at the engineering offices, pretty nice.
Yep.
And then with the 2 interns that we have, we've had interns all summer, we've got a lot done, they're working with Katie McKittrick on the lead stuff and helping her with permits, and it really has helped us kind of shave the top off of the backlog that we had. So everybody's happy.
Yeah, it's great. Well, let's go back to the agenda and please, I'm glad you both are here for the whole meeting. This is terrific. We need to approve the minutes and there were a couple of changes. You want to talk about it?
Yep, there was only just one clarification added to one sentence in the water purification district. Do you fill out, or I think everyone is, do
Yes.
you like me to read the sentence?
Sure.
James, okay. There we go. Albany is responsible for 54.4% of the cost, which equates to approximately 4.7 million per year over the term of the financing. So it's just a little bit of a clarification so that I can understand the scope of what we need to go off and finance and figure out how to fund. Good, all right, thanks.
And I have a motion to approve the minutes as amended.
I'll second.
Second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, motion carried. Next, we have committee reports and we're going to change the order a little bit today. We're going to do committee reports, commissioner reports, and then we're going to do Bill Kahn and talk about rates. So a lot of the information in the commission's report, I think, will help us when we talk about the rate discussion. So Chris, you're up.
Okay, welcome, everybody. This is the financial results through August of 2025. Sort of our written summary here, we can see that for the period, we collected $3.7 million, almost $1.2 million increase from prior year. So again, if we're slated to hit about 3.5 million every month to hit our budgeted targeted numbers of 3.7. That's obviously positive. Year-to-date revenue on a similar course, $26.1 million. That's a $2.1 million increase over prior year. And that is in line with our budget and our expectations and our rate increase. So that is all positive. About our miscellaneous revenues and our interest penalties year to date, $242,000. That's a nice plus on our normal operating revenue. Our expenditures, again, it's for the period with $2.3 million, almost a $500,000 increase from last year. Year to date, sort of the real number there, 19.7 million through August of 25. That's a $3.1 million increase from prior year. Again, when we spoke to the finance committee yesterday, a lot of our expenses were front loaded. We spent $1.5 million on vehicles and equipment alone in the first half of 2025. So lot was spent here. We're starting to even out a little bit as we get towards the end of the year, and we hope that really continues into 2026, but we took a pretty big bite this year, and it's reflected in that number, as you can see. Next page, Karen, is just a summary of our capital spend for the period, and that was $585,000. And below that is our what we've received. Karen accumulates with Bill these numbers here, and does a fantastic job at that, by the way. As you can see, $2.7 million from the ESC grant for our lead service line replacement. So that's a huge number for us. Really helps our liquidity, and we've been using it right away. We've had some smaller grants, 4,000, and then for the water comprehensive plan, the 18903, 160,000. There's a lot of activity. The 18903 with Bill, that's one of our busiest projects going on that Bill will talk about a little later. Our budgeted revenues year to date and for the period are relatively close. Our expenses to date are close. Sorry, for the period are close. Year to date, we're waiting for our October county bill. Once that comes through, that'll start to really equal out. Our next piece of that is our aged receivables, 2.6. This is pretty similar. Somewhat jumped off the page last month, and it's still there. OGS is the major culprit on this one. We've sent our bills. We've done everything on our end. They haven't recognized some of the invoices we've sent. So we're in the midst of reconciling them as we speak. They're the major culprit of this, and it's not the first time. It's something that's happened even in my tenure here at some point. So we need to fix what's that relationship there and figure out what's going on. But we have done everything on our end. It's their end. They have their own system. I did this in construction. I think it was called Textura when I did it. But they have their own billing system that we actually have to go into, and that's sort of the kind of the hang up there. So long story short, we're working on that, and that makes up the majority of this age number. Normally that should be around 1.5 million is around what we typically do. So there should be some age there, just as the nature of government, but that is high for us, and we need to address that. The line of credit, again, that's at $2,097,000. That $2,050,000 is what got transferred over from Bank of America. The balance on that is professional fees that we paid to actually do that transaction. Interest paid to date, $1 million through about $1 million through August. Again, that's interest. Our overall debt service is usually going to be in a $3-4 million area with principal. So that's the interest piece of it for now. Next page. Again, this is just the as you're familiar with this schedule, the actual financial statement kind of supporting the verbiage. We spoke to this already. Year to date, as you can see, it's a 9.11% increase over prior year. 26.1 million collected revenue.
Karen, can you make that bigger, please? Thank you.
$26.1 million of collected revenue compared to 21.9. So we're almost very close to our 10% rate increase. That's exactly what we want to see. Everything else, again, with expenses we spoke to, they're higher, and we hope that evens out. And our debt service year to date relatively equal from prior year. Some debt pieces have dropped off that we've paid. That's good. We want to see debt coming off as we pay and amortize our debt over these 30-year bonds. So that's not odd to have that be equal. Next page. This is our revenue analysis of month to date, and really more so just to show the breakout of some of our what I call our ancillary additional cash receipts. You can see what we've collected from our rents and our sales of scrap, fishing permits, and some other costs that aren't really part of our overall operation. So we summarize these here. $300,000 worth of this year to date through August. So that's a nice number not to have part of your operations. That helps our liquidity, and we're going to do everything to enhance that as well. Page.
You're not getting much help from Puck Finn, are you?
We're always struggling with Puck Finn.
We're working on it.
Yeah.
Good, all good.
Yeah. Laura's on the case. So this is our departmental budget. Part budget and actual results, actual year to date. And this is what you've seen before. We break this down by our departments and then our categories of salaries, equipment, contracts, and benefits. The very bottom is kind of where we summarize this above And as you can see back from the verbiage that I read, it's not, we have $19.7 million worth of expenses through August 2025 compared to 16.6 in the prior year. So again, it's higher, but it's also within the realm of our increased revenue as well. So we're tracking it, and we hope to to mitigate some of that stuff going forward the rest of the year and into 2026. Next page is our normal capital spend. What I usually kind of focus on is the first far right box there in the top. So for the month, we've spent, and this we call it our 8350 accounts, but our capital spend was $585,000. If you go down to the box below it, we've brought in grants to date $7.2 million. So just to go, sorry, I have to go back again. So it's 3.6 million that we've spent capital wise. That this is money that's gone out the door in our capital projects. We've brought in 7.2 million between financing and grants. So in that money, in that 12 million that you see, there's grant money that's sitting there. It's not operational. We're trying to segregate that so we can make sure that we're normal operations are being paid by sort of our normal cash. But that's good. And as you can see, it's $6.2 million worth of grants. That's that middle box on the bottom there, $6.2 million worth of grants compared to almost $1 million in financing. That's a ratio I would take any day. And it's one where it's the nature of some of our newer projects where we use the grants first. The grants come in, we draw down upon the grants, then we get into the actual financing piece of that. So we're going to see that number get closer unless Bill can do more of his magic. But that's a great thing to see there, and always positive for the finance people in my office. So next page is our overtime page, and this is fairly consistent. We had some increased overtime earlier in the year. We've had some other incidents that have come up. So this sort of is what it is. I think overall it's relatively reasonable, just with some increases from prior year. The bottom schedule there. As of 8/31, here's the famous due to, due from. So we are owed $2.2 million from the city. So this is kept consistent. And I mentioned this to the finance board yesterday. When Arif and I were looking at this, we believe at the end of the year, based upon what we're putting into our normal transfer schedule, what we're going to roll in from the tax roll. Let's say it's 4 or 5. It's going to be a big tax roll, we think, of somewhere between $4 and $5 million. That they should owe us about $1.5 to $2 million at the end of this year. That's what we project, and that's something that has happened in previous years for reasons unknown. So that's tracking towards that, and we'll see. But that, to me, I think we should at least do a partial settlement at the end of the year if that's certainly if that's the case. But we'll keep monitoring that, and that kind of rolls, I think, to the next schedule, which is one of our newer ones.
To your point,
Oh, sorry.
getting that cash, put that back out.
Absolutely.
That has to happen.
Absolutely. Agreed. So this is the actual aging itself. So if you look through that sort of on your own time, you can see, as I mentioned, OGS is kind of the major culprit there. We have a natural aging to this business. 60 days isn't abnormal. Even the 90 is not abnormal. When you get above 90, as some of this OGS was, that's not acceptable even for government. So that really should be about a $1 million to $1.5 million aged. And again, we're working on that with Andrea and Bill. Next page is our Route 7. So this is continues to be the normal players continue to be a huge success in this. So SUNY Nanotech, OGS when they pay. But their increases are driving this overall, and as you can see, it's almost an 11% increase, almost spot on to our rate increase. So that's there's still a few anomalies in there, which are relatively smaller, but our major players are coming through as expected, and that's very strong. Another benefit, as you can see, is that the 1.361 collection from Bethlehem. That I was calling this a gift from God. This was never expected in any projections that we had. So if you want someone to negotiate a contract for you, go to Bill Simcoe, because that comes out of his efforts there, and that's a huge plus to our liquidity in our bank account. So that's fantastic. Next slide. This, so again, we should probably move this page back up above where we're talking about the due to due from, but the far right corner, that number ties to this, that 2.2 million number that is is what is owed to us as of the end of August of 25 from the city. So this is the backup. I call this the Arif schedule. Who's sick today, by the way. Normally he'd be here. But this is the culmination of pulling together all the data that runs through the due to and due from. So this is something, and we've shared this with the with the city. They know we're tracking it. They're tracking on their end. So we're just making sure that we at least know what it is. We have support, generally for most of the bigger numbers there. We need some more, I think, to really, even with the audit, this came up during our audit as well. We need some, not only the $900,000 overhead, which will appear in December. That's not even on here yet. That's going to pop up in December. But some of these other bigger items that, when we get more of our, if we have some time over the next few months to get with them, make sure that you'll at least understand the charges. And that's a minimum. So, but this is something we're doing every month, and it's not something I think was done really in the past. So this is a new thing we're including, and it's important because it's big numbers and it's high volume, and we have to manage it. So I think just by the mere fact that we're looking at it, we're halfway managing it. We just need to get down and truly understand it. But there's a lot of work, and Arif did a great job with this. So next page is just the comparison of our residential routes. And again, well, you can see going back to May, we are trending above our 10% rate increase. And so we came in at 2.5, for Route 4 in comparison to 2024. It's a 12%, over 12.4% increase from prior year. So that's what we want. That's the trajectory, and we got some consistency. We've oft mentioned some issues in our billing department, but I think certainly this demonstrates that we're getting our bills out on time, and that I think we're at least getting the majority of our revenue. There's work to do there, but that's a positive sign. There's no question about that. So that'll do it for the normal financial presentation. Any questions?
Talk a little bit about Paris.
Sure. Was that the but budget was next? So the budget, yeah. So we completed the budget. We submitted that to City Hall to incorporate in their overall budget. Joe has his presentation on the 22nd.
We have our presentation.
I tag along. He doesn't let me speak during I'm there. So, but they want to hear. They love to hear him speak. They don't want to hear me at all. So he's the man there. So anyways, that's been submitted. This process, I would say, was the first time that collaboratively between myself, we have a reef here, and then Joe came together and really did I would say, drilled down in a granular budget that we're going to adhere to and make sure our operations adhere to through 2026. And that's not to say we didn't do that before, but we had some kind of vague categories where we were moving money around. This one we went through and said, this is your money. We're not transferring them out accounts around in January and February. We're going to work towards this. If you have a big purchase, that happens, but let's just figure it out and let's work within your budget. So we were pretty clear with that. We have a lean budget. There's not a lot of room to move in that, and we're gonna stick to it. And if we're gonna have to make a change to it, we have to have a very good reason approved by the right people. And that's in the prior years, I think, Arif and I were doing the audit, and in the prior year in 23, I had just started. So this is something I think it's a good budget. And it's something that I think we can adhere to. We made some assumptions in it, right? Things of that nature that we have to work out. But we're pretty proud of it, and I think it'll come out when the presentation when we do it.
One of the difficulties we have every year putting a budget together is we start doing this in June. So when we have any potential staff issues or resignation or something happens, we're not planning on that necessarily. If it happens in August and September, after we submitted the preliminary budget, we got to start chasing these and making these modifications before the budget director submits his budget to the common council, which normally goes in October, has to be by October 1. So we know we've got some things coming up next year with some staff retiring and things of that nature. So we kind of bake them in the cake. a little bit. What we have done this year was we've made sure we took any of these positions that, well, we like to have this, we like to have that. If we haven't filled those positions in a year or two, we took them out. You know, the heck with this Dear Santa stuff, we're going with the essential positions. So I think after we got done looking at, between the plant and 10 North Enterprise, we probably have a net +3 FTEs that are in the budget. However, at the end of next year, based on retirement, you know, some of those are gonna back out a little bit. So we're probably +2 FTEs in the budget for next year. The other thing I think we could probably work on a little bit better, we need to come up with, and I think you need to work on this with Amy and Frank Arquino and Mike and Justin. We need a better mechanism to do fleet planning, vehicle planning. Because we wind up buying a vehicle and then we do all these hand-me-downs and, you know, by the time somebody gets the last hand-me-down, the vehicle needs to get, you know, it's in the shop there at the time. So we need to get a better protocol for our vehicle acquisition process. And I know that's something that we've talked about before.
Yeah.
I think the budget this year went together pretty well. We have some scheduled increases in compensation that I think we're working with the budget director to bake them in the cake. We do performance evaluations every year. If we think there might be an opportunity for a promotion, position change, or a merit increase, that's also included. Collective bargaining agreements are usually worked on. Any adjustment to that, the budget director puts in at some point. Other than that, I think the budget process went together pretty well this year.
Yeah, and I think it'll help us in prior years if we didn't have enough in a budget and a GL line item, we need to go get an approval, you know, from City Hall to do that transfer. Those meetings happen every 2 weeks. So this will help our bill payment process as well if we get this right up
And then we're
front.
tracking Beaver Creek a little bit more carefully because that's a lot of shared O&M expenses as part of our intermunicipal agreement.
So that's coming up there. Next piece, Paris. So what came out with Paris recently on their report of compliance that we did not file the oldest, it was 23 for the Finance Authority. What I had done, and it was consistent with how we filed our audit report, was put all that information to the board and not separated it out into the very small piece. There's no activity in the authority except some debt that's held. So that's on me. I didn't realize it. I should have realized that it was an authority, should have been filed, that culpa, so we're gonna get that fixed. So what I have to do, I have to apply for another in process as we speak. They call it like an index code where I can file that separate for the authority. I gotta move some of the basically it's just the debt and some of the transactions on the authority account. Nothing else. There's no other operation, anything like that. So hopefully should be quick and get that set up and then submit it, and that should be fine. But again,
It can't be submitted together.
yeah, that's what it is now. It's all like the audit. It's all the information. If you want to know our financial status, you could go into the board. That'd be everything. They segregate it. I didn't know that. I should have known that. So that's on me. We'll fix that. We're fixing it as we speak, and we'll make sure we don't do that again. But again, it pops out in the report. Looks like we're 3 years behind, and we're technically not. We just got to make sure well, technically we are. Technically we are, but we just got to make that move, and I'm on it. So apologies. We'll do better at that.
So, you know what, there's so much going on just with the regular financial reporting that Chris and Arif and the guys have, that I've asked Laura to kind of help on the regulatory compliance end of it. So there's a checklist, there's a time frame. So Laura, as part of her counsel to the board, can just kind of, work with Chris to make sure that, when these things are coming up, that things up goes to finance guys, they can have the document, and we can collaborate in making sure we get that submitted to ABO. We're not the only entity. There's things in the ABO reports that meet Paris reporting that we can't comply with, as we can't get our financials done by 3/31 every year because we don't close the book. City doesn't close the books till after that.
So as for 24, we have the audit was completed in August. We have that, so that's filed. We have done certain statements for the budget. I mean, we just put up there, and then anything for our employees data is up there. So just we're going to finish that hopefully within the next month or so. We're a little short bandwidth wise. I'm working on it personally. So, but we're going to get ahead of this and not make sure we're not continually behind on Paris. And I promise you that.
And speaking of bandwidth, actually, we're able to retain, recruit, and hire an accountant.
Yes.
Person will start October 14th.
Right, this Mohammed Hussein Rafat's he goes by Mo. He is gonna be starting October 14th,
He's
so
worked with us before.
yeah.
When Tom was here, he filled in as a tenant.
So we interviewed him and he knew all these nuances to New World, and I swear it takes months to learn some of this stuff. He knew it and he was here 2 years ago.
Yeah, he'll hit the
You
ground
know,
running.
so we need him immediately, and everyone liked him, and it's great that he's gonna start. So we're all happy about that.
So you and the engineering department will be at full staff.
Full staff, yeah, if we
Boy,
keep
that's
everybody
good.
healthy, that would be nice, but outside of that, yeah, technically full staff, yeah.
Yeah,
Any
and
questions?
as we get to that full step, one of the things that we have a problem with now is space. We don't have enough room, and right now we're filled at 10 North Enterprise. So we've got another person coming in, a project manager in engineering, also on October 14th. So he's gonna work in the roof at this point. We got a 10 quarter, I'm kidding. We're gonna be doing some modifications, and we're Pete Beck and Kurt worked on the other engineering side, on the other side of the hall. We're gonna be taking some overhead down and putting another workstation in there. That's it. We're out of Dodge here. We're out of space. We've got people that are not in the best work areas that, to get stuff done. Steve, for example, Karen, another example. So we have a group working on space planning, and we're likely looking at a modular building. Either we could put one on the parcel here, or perhaps put one down in front of 35 Erie. And we've got a position that we want to add next year that actually needs to be in this building.
Yeah.
So we're working on it. We want to maybe work with some of Amy's watershed people. Would they be the group that could pick up and go to a modular, but we want to have that proximate? They need to be proximate to here too, so that's part of our space plan. Nothing's ever easy.
So that's it for me. Any questions?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Let's move to the commissioners' reports.
Karen, I want to open up with the two Excel, with the KPI starts, and then we'll do the PowerPoint. And then go to Q4. So just for the engineering guys, we're all engineers, so we like numbers. And if we set goals, you got to measure what you're trying to do. So all the stuff that Chris talked about in that narrative, I try to capture in this KPI report. And we kind of look at where we are, their budget, we track it month to date, and then year to date, if you go all the way over to the left. Yeah. So we kind of look at where we are year to date with some of these issues as well. And this is actually, it's on the server, you can actually see it, so the commissioner KPI data. So you may want to take a look through that folder and just get familiar with where we are. So as Chris points out, we're in pretty good shape. I like the visuals for me. And even if we added a $4 million sewer bill to here, we're at 23 million, so we're still under our budgeted expenses.
Yeah.
And that number's gonna go up. So I like where we are on that. It rolled down a little. Let's keep going. I'm looking at the next page. Right there. Oh, okay, so I'm gonna show you a comparative slide on the injuries on this number here, compared to where we are. Our goal is always 0 injuries, but we want to try to get the injuries with lost time manageable. When I came here before, 10 years ago, this number, lost time injuries in the department would be like 20. So we had Capital Safety Services, our safety consultant. They do daily site audits on our projects that we got going out in the field. They do a facility audit. They'll come to here 2-3 times a year to the plant, to alcove, or your exits marked right, blah, blah, all those things to be compliant. We're pretty good at that. They've been an excellent addition. And then Sarah and I met with Triad, our third-party workers' comp administrator, this week. We didn't get that PDF yet, did we?
We did not.
So they had a PDF that they shared with us. Doesn't have any names in it, but it has a summary of the last few years of all of our expenses, indemnity expenses, the medical expenses, the scheduled loss of uses, and 2013, 14, 15, those numbers every year like $1 million. And now we're down averaging, I think, like $300,000 or $400,000 was the average. And the biggest thing that we've got is a scheduled loss of use, part of workers' comp awards, which always puzzles me, because if you have somebody with a 50% loss of use of a limb, how can they work doing physical work in the field? That has always baffled me a little bit. But you'll see that when it comes out. And what you also see, the last page, they have what I call the frequent flyer list, where they have a number of workers' comp claims and a number of people that had multiple claims. That is a scary number when you look at that. So we're gonna be, that's what we want to start working on with the safety committee, kind of diving into this a little bit. So if somebody goes out on a workers' comp, their physician may release them back to duty. We have then our folks, our physician at Capital Safety, come back and do a fit for duty. You know, so just because you're healthy, your heart's beating, you're breathing, you know, can you lift the 50 pounds? Can you do something? Because the last thing we want is somebody to come back and get hurt again. It's not just us, it's their family, you know, it's their livelihood, it's their longevity. We want to make sure safety first. We're concerned about our employees' health and welfare, and we want them to go home safely every night. So, yeah, and on that, some of you may have seen, we were one of the designated few to get profiled for water main breaks by Channel 13 this week. Thankfully, we were not cohos. But we did share with these guys what we do to try to manage the loss of service for our customers. When we have a main break, the first thing we're trying to do is shut the water off and make the damage, keep it as minimal as possible. But once we do that, we're interrupting service to customers. So we try to cut the amount of water that's flowing out by shutting some valves, maybe not cut it off right away. And we try to locate the area, the valves, make sure they're working so we can minimize the area that's going to be affected by a loss of service. So Bill would tell you when we got valves that haven't been exercised in 100 years, you go out, you go to exercise, they break, all of a sudden the shut was going to be here and now has to be out here. So that's a real problem, and that's what other communities face, the same thing, valves will break. But in any event, once we get the main isolated, we can't do anything until we call locations. That's gonna take a couple hours to start with. So we'll mobilize and we're getting ready to go. Paint gets down on the ground, bang, then we start digging. Our goal is to keep the loss of service to 6 hours or less. That's very ambitious. And for a lot of times, we're actually able to do that, you know, where we keep the green here, we're kind of where we want to be. But then we get something like this where the proverbial, you know, what hits the fan and we can't get anything fixed. We fix it once, we go to charge it up and it breaks again. That's a problem. So when that happens, we're always hoping that when this happens, you know, the number of properties with a service loss was only one. You know, it wasn't 50. So they kind of weigh that a little bit. So that's why I try to monitor this, and it's important for us to maintain that presence. The other thing that we talked about was leak detection. That helps us minimize these main breaks. If we can find a leak soon, usually a leak at some point is going to be a main break that we have a problem. If we can fix the leak, we don't have the main break. So just wanted to share that with you. Just roll down a little bit. Move slow. Alcove. Yeah, there we go. So a lot of communities have dry it's been, thank God for the last 2.5 inches of rain in the last 2 days. Right now, Alcove is about 613 and a half. It'll probably come up a little bit. And right now, that actually, although we're 4 feet below the spillway, that's about normal for this time of year. And we still have, you know, a high capacity of, we're about 80, between 85 and 90% of the capacity of the usable capacity of the reservoir. So we always like to be 100%, but the fact that we're pretty close to normal, regardless of how dry it's been, that's a positive number for us. Go ahead down a little bit more.
A question.
Yeah.
I think I asked this last time, it didn't stick. Water consumed, how is that billed?
I'm going to show that. I'm going to talk about that in the PowerPoint.
So I was wondering how the numbers flopped along the from.
Numbers flopping. These things up.
Yeah.
I'm going to grab this.
Okay.
I'm going to show that in the PowerPoint. And I probably will screw that question up, so we'll keep going. Leak detection. We talked about this before. Remember when Mike walked a little bit further? Mike Rudy came in and talked about the fixed detectors on the hydrants. You can see how effective it is. We got almost 600 of those detectors in. We found 60 leaks so far with that this year. 32. If we're finding so many leaks, we can't fix them fast because we don't have enough people. So we're trying to fix leaks, we're trying to flush hydrants, we're trying to do lead service replacements. There's only so many things we can get done in a given course of time, but that just shows how busy our guys, how hard they work. and how often they are not appreciated. Steve's doing a pretty good job going out on social media and profiling projects and giving folks an idea of how their rates are being spent. We gotta do more of that.
I know.
Their water and sewer rates, get those signs,
Yep.
everybody's busy. I just wanted to share that with you a little bit. Let's go to the PowerPoint. So this is something I started doing with the board. I do with the senior staff, the mayor's meeting every month, and it just a little bit profiles kind of where we're at in a given point of time. And this is why we get the financials so early. We put the pressure on a reef bill so I can get these for the second Thursday of every month meeting. So this just were items that I had that we shared with our senior staff to kind of let folks know in other departments what we're doing. But it also, it's a good message for folks in our own department of what we're doing. And we talked about Lincoln Park Learning Garden. We're gonna talk about that a little bit more. The fluoridation project construction continues. We're gonna have complete by year end. We mailed 25,000 or so, 25,000?
22, 23-ish, somewhere in
I
there.
just rounded up to 25.
Yeah.
So we mailed a lot of letters out to every one of our properties that has a water meter, I guess is what it said.
Mhm.
And so 25,000 pieces went out. I think we shared that with the board. Frequently asked questions, facts and figures, how much the project cost, when it's going to go in effect, and just some basic questions about the history. And we did that. We asked people if they had any questions or concerns, respond on the website, call the dispatch number, or email us. To date, I've had 15 responses out of 23,000 pieces of, and that's 3 weeks ago.
Yeah.
And of that, 4 were positive, 6 were anti, and the other part were either ambivalent or I gotta finish my conversation with them. I call every one of them. And some people have been, hey, thanks for doing this, it's great. Some people are concerned about, is this gonna impact my pet? And another person wants to know where I lived, but so it's 51 Cardinal Avenue, bring it on. Yeah, it's just really, it's, people are strongly opinion about it, we get that, we get it, then we wind up talking and we agree to disagree, and that's kind of where we're at, or get the side. And so that's next slide, back up one, I'm sorry. This organization transition plan, 26 goals and objectives. So we got a smaller group of our senior staff really working on how do we want to organize our departments for next year. A couple of things we want to tweak a little bit with changes in staff, changes in the position. With a pending retirement on the operations side with Mike Rudy. How do we want to organize our leadership team going into next year and having at least that first quarter? So one of the things we're going to challenge them on is, besides where we're going to put extra people, is how we're going to kick off the 2026 plan. So we want to try to have that wrapped up and probably a presentation to the board, I'm guessing December, November, December. Joe DiGiovanni's working, kind of leading that one next week. So we could probably, this is water production and consumption. Production is what's coming out of the plant. Consumption is what we are actually measuring coming out of Loudonville. And so how this reconciles with metering and stuff, we're not there yet. The problem is because we don't, we're seeking to get that data. We think it's available to get within the structures that we have, but this is where we talked about, and we put the billing and we're working on it. This is Bill Sempo's Holy Grail. How do we get to figure out what that number is and what's our true non-revenue water? We know we're not losing $500 million downstate to Lincoln Park Pool now, but let's look at the next one. So what we've tried to do is I go back to 2019. This is the water coming out of the plant year to date. And this was before COVID, having Beth on the Gilderland on their long-term purchase contracts. That's the number we had at this time of year, just shy of 4.3 billion gallons. And then, this is kind of where we were. COVID started happening here. Then COVID. This is COVID. This is people not going to work that year. So I'm not quite sure what we're going on here. But this is where we start. People are coming back to work. We're kind of post-COVID. that Bethlehem and Gilderland, the regular guarantee, that comes out of the equation. So right now, it's on they take water on when they need it. This is a new normal, I think. This is kind of what we're gonna see, hybrid work environment, or outside of district purchases when they want it. So I think, and we're about where we were back here, year to date. Sometimes that's weather dependent. You always want to look at where you are at the end of the year when it kind of normalizes out. But we went and looked at last year, we produced about, what was our report, Bill, 6.1, 6.2 billion gallons out of the plant. When Bill and I started here in 2014, that number was close to 6.9 to 7 billion gallons. So, you know, some of that we think will fix some leaks and take care of business, but Lincoln Park's the home. But we're still losing a lot of water in the system, and that's something that we need to work on. Next one. So this kind of captures a lot of Chris's information. So this is our, what we, cash coming in every year, where we are percent of budget year to date. Our expenses year to date, same thing. These are the billings. So this is our leading indicator. This is our lagging indicator. This is like the water going out to the system. That's kind of a leading indicator. That's going to tell us what this number looks like. And that's tells us kind of where we are when people pay. When I remember Bill Kahn saying, hey, once you start putting rate increases, they start memorializing. What's the word you use, Bill? I forget, you know, they kind of get annuity. Thank you. I should probably be practicing that word at this point in my career. So we actually are starting to see how these rate increases are really kind of, you know, being cumulative and helping us get where this number is. Because we're not really selling that much more water, right? It's pretty much staying steady when you looked at that number earlier. But these numbers are getting higher, and that's what this looks like. So I like that trajectory. I like this trajectory. We'd like to flatten this one out a little bit. You know? So what this happens here, we don't spend $1 million on vehicles for a year. If this number comes down, we go, oh, we got to catch up. So we spend a ton of money this year buying all kinds of vehicles and stuff. That number kicks up a little bit. So we need to, from a budgeting perspective, working with Chris and RF, looking at our long-term forecasting and trying to minimize what potential rate increases are, knowing what our water sales are likely going to be. We have some organic growth in the system. So we need a rate increase to capture the need to pay our bills and take care of our debt service. But if we can somehow find a way to flatten those big lump numbers, like come up with a fleet management acquisition thing, that would be very helpful. So did I answer some of the?
Yes, you did.
Oh, thanks. I was worried. It's always, I get really nervous when the engineer on the board asks a question, you know, just give it a shot. Next one. Red water services. I had this big slide before. The mayor said, no, the slide you get, that's an engineering slide. Can you dumb it down a little bit? Actually, it was simplifying it. And this shows the number of lead services that we did all of 2023. That's all actually all year, all of 2024. This is what we've done so far this year. And this number is going up for a couple of reasons. One, we got Fed money to help do some of the work. And we piggyback on top of the city's paving projects on Manning Boulevard, Central Avenue. There's another street, I forgot the name of it that we did, Bill. But that's where we would include lead service replacements in the city's paving contract. Then we would reimburse them for that portion of the work that the contractor did. Worked out great. So Bill Creed, the city engineer, guy Howard Goble, his predecessor, working with Katie McKittrick, have got this working really, really well. This number is going to wind up probably north of 750. I'm guessing this year when we're all done. And the program to date almost will have over 2,000 lead services replaced by the end of the year. This is where I think the board can be really proud. This is the investment that you've made to help people replace their lead services. $1.3 million that came out of operations to take care of this. That's a big deal. Well done. Thank you guys for doing that. Next one. And we can skip this one. This looks at, we just kind of look at where we are year over year with incident reports. They're interesting, and Sarah can tell you, you know, it's the nature of the injury that you have. This year we've had the same number of incident reports, more required medical treatment, more that lost time than last year, but the injuries last year are more days out. So I kind of like, not like, or I'm not unhappy that this number is not higher. We're good. The next one is what we put up. It's kind of like the scoreboard. And we would expect, remember when you drive by sites, hey, we've had so many days without a lost time accident. Used to see this at NL Industries on Central Avenue when I was a kid, driving past that Mercury refining site up at Albany. I know we do it at the port, has lost days, the stevedores do it. Obviously, the higher this number, you know, the fewer injuries or accidents they have with that lost time. We would expect to have this number be lower in the activities we have that are higher risk. The sewer repairs, the TD repairs, the guys in the trenches, you'd expect those numbers to be a little more impacted. And for the most part, they are. And there's always an anomaly once in a while. That's something we've talked about. The lab, of course, every time we put something like that out, the first person, I don't want to cut myself. I don't want to have a lost time day, but you don't want to be the one that makes your number go down and start over again. So 96, I'd like to see if we can get that up to like 250, 300. Try to get it up like a year. It would be nice to have no lost time in a year for the department. That's a goal, aspiration. Gotta have a goal to shoot at. Next one. Let's just start tracking first, but it's just dispatch administrator Colby does a good job getting these things to close all our C-click fixes. These are looked at the mayor's staff meeting. So we have C-click fix goals to close them within 2 weeks. We're like 85 to 90%. So everybody says, yeah, we're doing great, we're like 95%, but their goal is like 50 weeks, you know, so just it's how you measure your level of success. Next one. Well, these are just, we track these and just show the other departments and the mayor and then you guys where we are with the percent completes on these different projects. This is going to speed up really quick over the next month or so. We'll be at substantial completion by the end of October. And these are just our lead services. These are all going to be 100%, except this one, which is ongoing. We're actually in the middle of our lead compliance testing. We're probably 60% done with the second phase, field estimate analytics. Film at 11, we're not sure what that number looks like. I see Amsterdam just had to publicize this next one. And these are just projects going on at the water treatment plant. These will be done by pretty much by the end of the year, as well as this one. So I think this is, let's do the other before. Sorry for going on a little bit, but. So just for Q4, we talked about a lot of these things. This is something here, we talked about trying to take our customer service database and our operations workflow management, putting them into one database that's based on an address. So right now, dispatch is saying, hey, can you give me a number at this property because I need to call them. Why can't you get it yourself? You know, why are we doing this extra work? So at 51 Cardinal Avenue, my water meter read, any service calls that were done by the metering department to my house, or any work that was done by the operations guys, should be on one database that we can pop out of. We can do that. It just takes a little bit of an effort. We're working on that. Just put down a little bit. So I talked about, these are really the priorities. We're coming up at the end of the year. We're not starting a lot of new stuff. We want to wrap up things that are issues for us. Space planning, big problem for us. We'll skip over. I just kind of talked about that. Fluoridation in Lincoln Park, we want to get them done by the end of the year. We're tracking very well for that. So that's pretty much, I think, where I had. Maybe this is a good time to talk about the Lincoln Park Learning Garden. You want to come up and if you have a slide you want to speak with. So I've asked Mahmoud, we went to a program where you could get a certification through sustainability. I forget the name of it. Really, you can talk about the certification that you got and how we're trying to apply that to this project.
Good morning, everyone. Today I would like to present the opportunity of pursuing Envision verification for Lincoln Park Learning Garden. So in this presentation, I'll try to make it short and to the point, and I'll cover these points during this presentation. First, I'll explain what is Envision. Then I'll show how Lincoln Park Learning Garden fits perfectly with Envision principles. Then we can review the cost of pursuing this verification. And lastly, we will highlight the long-term benefits of this verification. So what is Envision? It's basically a rating system that weight and evaluate the sustainability of infrastructure project. So they check how sustainable projects are. And it was created by the Institute of Sustainable Infrastructure, which originally was created by the three biggest engineer organizations in the US. These three organizations work together to create Envision as a national standard for sustainability. What I like about Envision is that it uses 5 categories to evaluate projects. We have quality of life, leadership, resource allocation, natural world, and climate and resilience. So they don't only focus on numbers like saving money and energy. They also consider how projects impact the people around them. They look into how projects provide opportunity to everyone, how projects improve the quality of life for everyone, and many more stuff than just saving numbers. So within those 5 categories, there are smaller goals, and a project can score different points depending on the level of achievement. The higher the achievement, the more points a project can score. And these points add up to 1,000 possible points. And based on those points, a project can earn one of these 4 awards. Verified if a project scored 20% of those points, silver, 30% gold, 40% and platinum, 50% of those points. Around the world, there are almost 200 projects verified so far. Some of them in the US, Europe, Middle East. And however, when we take a closer look at upstate New York, we can see that there are only few projects that are verified. And when we take a closer look at our region here, sorry. When we take a closer look at our region here, we don't see any verified project. And that's where Lincoln Park Lane Garden project comes in. Thank you. This project is the first project I was directly involved in. I had Lisa with daily inspection and taking daily notes. From my perspective, I believe that this project has all the components that will help us to score well under Envision. We have wetland, which can help us to get those credits related to water quality and climate resilience. We have meditation area. We have outdoor classrooms, which will help us to get those credits related to public engagement and learning. And in this project, we try to keep the natural beauty of the place, and this will help us to get credits related to biodiversity and environmental conservation. And I have been through some papers related to this project, and there is strong requirement for MWBE, which also will help us to get credits for leadership. So how much will it cost us to verify this project? So in order to register and verify this project, there are 2 main fees required. First is 2,000, which is the registration fees. This applies to any project at any scale. And we also have 9,000 for verification, and for a project that's less than 5 million. And since we are a member of the Institute for Sustainable Infrastructure, our rate will be 9,000 for verification. Together, that is 11,000, which is 0.4% of the total cost of the project. Normally, or typically, cities and municipalities will need to hire an outside consultant to manage their paper, because only someone with ENBSP credit license can work on this paper and submit them to get verified. I was able to obtain one recently, which means that we can do the whole process in-house, which can save us 20K to 50K. So the total cost will. Thanks. So the total will be 11,000. So what are the long-term benefits of pursuing this verification? First of all, it can strengthen our reputation. We can set Albany as a model for a regional model for sustainability, and that can help us to stand out when we apply for funding. Also, would help us to build public trust because the whole process is made by a third party company that has no relation to us. So we are getting credits from someone outside of Albany. And lastly, going through this process will help us to gain more knowledge about sustainability. So when it comes to working on our next project, we will have the knowledge to understand the stuff that we need to address in order to score high level of sustainability and achieve higher awards. So in short, pursuing this verification will help us to strengthen our reputation, secure more funding opportunities, build internal expertise, which all will directly impact us as a water department and the people we serve. Thanks.
Well done.
I think the board is probably familiar with the LEED accreditation, Leadership in Energy and Environmental Design. A lot of PEs and architects want to get that certification. It allows them to pursue these types of leadership project certifications in the built environment. And normally that gets you some tax credits or other issues. This is, I think, like an equivalent to that, but it's for environmental projects. That's right. Yeah. So, and we talked about sustainability being a core value, time to walk the talk now. So we've got a signature project. I think for all the reasons, if you go back one slide that we talked about the benefits of doing that, whoop, next one. I think this hit me on the head. So in my view, the $11,000 investment in pursuing this is worth it. So we just wanted to share that with the board and let you know what we're doing. Hopefully you'll agree that it's a wise investment and it supports the mission that we've got. Well, we got the right guy to do it. Good job. Thank you. Yeah. I think that's my part, Bill.
That's
I
right.
yield the balance of my time, which I went way over.
Oh, Joe, I was gonna ask, I saw in the daily report that it's the first time Beaver Creek is showing complete. Did you have a party?
Well, yeah.
Yeah.
Not really. We're just, we learn something every storm.
Okay.
Yeah, which is good. Actually, it's working pretty well. We had a good training. We're pretty happy with how it worked.
I was like, it's great to see nothing ongoing this week on it. This is fabulous. Yeah.
Yeah, maybe spend for that. So I wanted to start off talking about the impact of what the county sewer district is proposing to do. County sewer district now called the Water Purification District because they changed their name. But they recently had a public hearing in regard to $180 million worth of improvements that they want to make. And on behalf of the water board, I went in for the public hearing, which was August 26th. And you guys can have a copy of this there, but basically it has an impact of about $5 million a year on the cost of the water board for the services of the county sewer district. And
Does
so,
that mean we go from 8 to 13
right. So
million?
So I guess this comment really was to say, they're proposing to do this over a fairly short time period. We don't know that they really would be able to do that, but they're proceeding, trying to get this funding. Some of it they're hoping to get some grant funding, offsetting the borrowing. Some of it they will be pursuing right now without there being a substantial amount of grants associated with it. So we would hope that they could pursue getting more grant money to offset the cost. Also, we're still working with a contract that was signed on their coin back in 1970 between the county sewer district and the city of Surrey. And so I commented that, maybe it's time that we looked at. Part of what we did with the long-term control plan was try to maximize the flow to the wastewater treatment plants. Maybe it's time to look at some other models of costs for some of the other that might have CSO components. Because we are capturing more. So forth. So I wanted to mention that. Did you also have the bill? And so I guess the other thing I wanted to point out just how the bills come in, because I'm not sure the board has seen. But they send a bill, and in the second page of the bill, you see the component for debt service is quite low, $200,000. And most of the $4 million that is the operation maintenance cost. And if you look on the third page, you see that we're at 62.31% of the operational cost based on the flow monitoring. So you've seen the percentage that Albany has on the operational costs go up since COVID. And I guess there's two factors. One was there was kind of a difference how the flows were due to COVID, and also a component of long-term control plan, like elimination of some of the inflow from streams that Cohoes was getting and so forth, that helped to shift some of the operational costs more up to the Albany side. So what we're looking at is on the debt service side, it would be a very large component. So we want the county to be upgrading their facilities, and they really probably overdue with their expenditures in capital. I also wanted to go to the just some charts that so the first one is kind of the overall over the last since 2015. You see a slight trend upward of what we're sending to the county sewer district. This is the total part here is both the south plant and the north plant together. So you see a slight increase. Now, if you go to the next one, most of that increase is really what's going to the north plant. And that makes sense because most of the increase has been like assuming polytech, growth that's occurred in Washington and the corridor. And then if you go to the next slide, most of the south plant is kind of up and down all over the place because that's weather dependent, and wet weather we get a lot more flow going to the north plant. That's really kind of stayed flat over this period since 2015. So going forward, there's going to be a lot additional debt service costs from it, which is going to increase our costs for the county sewer district.
What are these measuring?
This is in million gallons per day. So the million gallons per day is what's on the vertical axis. So the design capacity of the south plant is 19 MGD. They have a permit that allows them to go up to 29. So the south plant gets a lot of excess water. The north plant is probably a 50% capacity. So the county sewer district actually has capacity. We talk about how much we produce on the water side. We're producing around 17 MGD on average throughout the year. We've got a water plant that has a 28 MGD capacity. So we've got excess capacity on the water side. We've got the county sewer district has excess capacity for the federal plants. So as questions come up about whether we can serve additional users, that's true. So, when the county borrows this money, they'll have short-term borrowings and, the impact of the rate will be as they build out, so it's not gonna be immediately coming into next year, the year after that, they're gonna have the design, still design time. Some of these projects are gonna be starting earlier, and some of them are gonna trail, but the main one that they're trying to get done right away has to do with the incinerators. They need to replace the incinerators in both of the plants, and that's gonna be right away, and that has some grant money associated with it. So I just wanted to, because that's the biggest expense the water board has, that they have no control over.
Do you know what our charge would be if it was allocated based on today as opposed to when the deal was made?
Well, so each of the communities has a certain reserve capacity, and that's what's driving the debt service portion. The main one that's out of whack is Green Island, because back at the time that in 1970, they still had a lot of industrial use, so they had 4 GE of reserve capacity, which they don't really need. Other communities like Gilroy and Colony, if they were to look at it over again, they may be interested in additional reserve capacity. But that's so, yeah, if we were looking at trying to go back to the contract, I guess I would be suggesting not just editing the existing contract, but maybe looking at a whole new template for how the cost could be allocated. I mean, we have really 100% of the South Plan. We're the only community that participates in the South Plan. Perhaps we could be paying after the costs of the South Plan and our share of the North Plan. Maybe it just be some different a lot, because maybe with a big change in flow between wet weather and dry weather periods, maybe the operational costs don't increase incrementally with those flows. But it would probably take an engineering study. So all the communities have to be participating in the county legislature that's involved in the new contract. So it is a big deal, but after 55 years, maybe it's time to look at it. And maybe there's some other mechanism for the financing too. We've been mostly able to get, grants and zero interest financing. The county sewer district overall has a harder time getting hardship and getting the same consideration like you do. But I don't know how that would work exactly, since if you were borrowing for something that wasn't our asset, I'm sure I can. But anything else on the sewer district?
Yeah, I have one question. Following the public hearing, is it anticipated that the district is gonna come out with like findings and determinations in response to the comments, or is it? Thanks for coming, kind of.
Well, the purpose really was in regard to their bond resolution.
Oh, okay.
In order for them to make applications for grants and financing, they have to go through the SIP process.
Yeah,
And have a bond resolution.
okay.
So so they haven't closed on any financings yet. They're just making applications
I see.
and deciding not to do. Maybe the bond resolutions might get them up to $180 million worth of bond resolutions, but maybe when they actually go to financing, then they pick smaller chunks like we've done, and have tranches and financing.
Right.
Because it'd be hard for them to spend $180 million in one short-term financing.
Right.
So I guess I'll move on to the other thing. So I went through the various finances with, finance authority yesterday. First thing on the list here is the bonds of 2021. And we're just finishing up, using up that money. We do have work going on at Harriman campus and with the line feed equipment, the national water main out there with sewer lining, with shop and finishing up, with our dam safety project. So we're just trying to use up that last $2 million that was, part of the bonds of 2021. We're also just trying to finish up with this drinking water SRF 18523, and that's being used on the line feed project. 18903 is the biggest one that's ongoing now with our iteration project of line and maintenance building project. So that's pretty active. And we did just manage to get, we had kind of a delay getting disbursement against that, and we finally got $1.5 million disbursement recently on that. So that's good news, because once you get started with the disbursements, it usually goes quickly. Then the next couple, Basic Creek, we haven't closed on any financing. We put in for REIA grant application, WQIP grant application again. And the same is true for the next page for Winston Lake, dam safety improvements. 19157 is for another phase of work at the water plant and doing some painting of our elevated storage tanks. We haven't decided to move forward with that financing yet. We were kind of holding off until we completed some of the work we're doing at the treatment plant now. But we did put in a grant application for that, so we could see if we could be successful at getting some. It's just that so far we haven't been successful.
I was out at the water plant last week, and it's amazing work they've done. The filtration plant, it looks brand new.
Well, we're hoping to get the aeration back in mind soon. We had aeration down, bypassing aeration while we were working on the building. Now it's going to be the best it's ever going to look for a long time. The floor and all the basement walls, usually are almost full of water. You don't see them. But when we had permanganate, it tends to get to be darker color and staining the walls. But so anyway, we have more to do with finishing up our comprehensive plan. We started working on that off a 2019 plan. They're going to get multiple tranches to get us there. So the 19554 on this list, water main improvements, we are moving ahead towards some closing on that. We've got all the paperwork approved for the engineers report and so forth, so we can buy some money to start doing some water main replacements in 2026. But we have been holding off with our engineering folks and not spending money ahead of getting the financing. So there will be a little bit of a delay as we need to go through design before we can get the construction. And we did talk about 19456 lead service line replacement. So far, that 2.7 that was talked about that we got in was for reimbursing for work done by our own forces. So that is so far we haven't gotten dispersed yet on some of the work done with contractors like Newcastle and Leedsy are doing these projects. So in those cases, they have to get the waivers on some of these MWBE requirements so they'll be dispersible. And we're telling them, hey, you have to get your waivers before you get payment. So that's but we're expecting to be able to do that. And also on the lead service lines inventory, we're really doing the inventory right as we're doing the replacement. We have some of that inventory we've done with our own forces, potholing to check and see if we have, popular lead someplace. In the streets projects, they're excavating at the curb boxes, and if it's lead, they just continue on into, service line replacement. So that is, the last thing in this, drinking water SRF is we put in another listing in the intended use plan for $14 million. That will be when we get done with the $12.8 million that we already have. You want to make sure that trying to get grants and financing in place. And of course, we don't know what the federal government's going to do with that. That's probably fluoridation, we've got the $1 million grant, and then the water board is going to have to plug in some money on top of that to do the full building of that. So that's moving forward. Gallows got that construction contract. And then after that, we start looking at our long-term control plan. 1400, we've been totally dispersed. Our second tranche, 1401, we're still trying to get the last $600,000. We're working on that, carrying on our work to get that dispersed. Beaver Creek still has $240,000 to get dispersed, but we still have some things we probably just completed some work that will probably be submitted. We still have some work with our consultants on the dose response testing, what other operating plan to close that out. And then the last tranche, 1404, most of the work most of that funding is for things at Cohoes and Troy. Cohoes has a affordables project that's underway right now, Carver's the contractor. So that'll probably be done, mostly be done this year. They've got another project called the Manor Ave project that doesn't have to be done till the end of 27, but that's in a preliminary design now. And Troy's got a cross street project that's actually been awarded now. Actually, the same contractor is doing our lining. The National Water Main is doing that project. So other than that, we've got two CSOs to be eliminated, and we've asked for an extension on Liberty overflow removal because that's in the middle of that Liberty Park project, which might turn into a soccer stadium or something that's capitalize all the comes up with. Lincoln Park Learning Garden, we've already talked about Luigi's working on that. That's moving ahead. Academy Road constructed wetlands really all done. And we're doing more work next year on Hackett Boulevard with some stormwater improvements because we got more things to work with on the 1700. 1800 is really all done. That's the Tide Gate project, Beaver Creek's Tide Gates. And 1900 is grant money that we have. So 25% of the National Water Main stuff can be funded with that grant. Furlough Terrace, we haven't closed on the financing yet, but that's in a queue now with the FC. All the paperwork is in. We're just waiting for them to come up with a closing date. And the same with 2100. That really is the biggest of all the things that are coming up. We've got $18 million worth of project costs. We've got $8 million worth of bill financing, bill grant money, and $10 million of interest free. And we've also applied to see if we could get any money for that, which could essentially be only 25%. So that would let us do our sewer lining projects and a bunch of other improvements for those sewage pumping stations. And 2200 is a project that we've kind of put on hold because it was government diversion and we thought it was more expensive. less economical than we thought, but we still may be disadvantaged to. North Hawk Street, we had $2.7 million grant for that project. I think we're just about at the point of EFC approving that. Running lights. Part of our new engineer. Is the guy who has to approve that, he said he's been looking at this week, so. And engineering planning grants, the main one that concern is we're looking at finishing up with a reporting we go to rehabilitation of the Chromeville trunk sewer, which will probably lead to a future $5 million expense or so for rehabilitation. So that's a list. I'll be working in the next couple of months with Arcadis on updating the five-year capital improvement plan and updating where we think we stand with these projects and road building construction. I know Chris too is just in how the cash flow goes in on these projects. So we work on that, so we have that forward for the expected measures.
Any questions for Bill? I have one simple minded question. How do the numbers work? What does 22-00 mean?
Well, each of these EFC projects, actually, they're not that, it has a longer designation than that.
Oh, you just did it before. Oh,
Yeah, it's C4, 5402. Then 22 is I don't know, but the drinking water ones just had a number.
yeah.
4-digit number.
Chuck, that's the full employment act for accountants.
Thank you.
Yeah, one thing that. When we were doing our various tranches on the water side, we were given separate numbers to these. On the clean water side, like with the Beaver Creek, when we had tranches, there's like a 00, 01, 02. I don't know why they don't do that on the drinking water side, but you know, on the clean water side, they give you more scoring points if you're, if you have a tranches on a project, particularly if it's required in the consent. Yeah. So if you're doing things that follow on to a master plan, more points in the scoring system, and you do much better with a clean water side than the regular sense.
Bill. Joe, do you have anything more you want?
We are deep into your agenda and deep into your time, so just in the interest of time. We have put the master service agreement for the official consultant to the board, Arcadis, is up at the end of this year. We have most of the other master services task order agreements are up this year. We have 2 consultants that goes into next year, but we're gonna end them all at the end of this year. We have an RFP out now for the official consultant and an RFP out for the task order master service agreement for multiple consultants. We'll get those back probably the middle of October, and we'll have some recommendations for the board at the October meeting for the official consultant and for the consultants that we want to re-engage on these term agreements. So we'll have that for you at the October meeting to start those at the beginning of 2026. Government purchase agreement, that's just, we talked about that before, right? Briefly.
Yeah, I think they had a proposal, which Laura, did we have that circulated to all the? I don't know, but we had a request in regard to renegotiating purchase order agreements, but
It hasn't been circulated to the whole board.
there was just a new agreement in January. I guess it'd been my suggestion maybe that at this point we might just fall back that we didn't think it was time to would be renegotiating the boundary. They're only asking for an additional 5 million gallons
A year.
a
Yeah.
year. And of course, this year, they're saying it's just a big anomaly. But it doesn't seem to be that much of a difference if they want to go from 35 million gallons to 40 million gallons as they take. But what they wanted to add to it was that any additional would be the residential rates. And the whole purpose of our January, it's at the tiered rate, not at the residential rate.
So my sense at this point is that we probably need a little more staff time to kind of kick back and forth with their folks, and when we have something that we think is reasonable that we can concrete to bring to the board, we can do it at that
Yeah.
time.
I think we wanted to go back and say, well, here's how much you used in 2025.
Yeah.
You know, if you wanted to be renegotiating what the minimum, it's gonna be. Perhaps it should be a lot more than 40, but
Yeah, I think it's a little too early to doing this.
I would add, their pricing system is exactly the opposite of ours. Their large users pay a lower rate. And their residential users pay a higher rate.
which isn't unusual.
Yeah.
That's it for us on the commission side.
Bill, you want to talk about rates?
Yeah, how much time do we have?
This is important.
Okay. So this is the time of the year we talk about rates. And, certainly by November, there's to be a final decision that, I would expect that there'll be a public hearing in December. And I think we have a lot going for us this year in the quality of the numbers. It's amazing how finally some of these analytical tools have shown up on the screen. For example, that we're 11%, that we happen to have a 10% increase, and some of these numbers have shown up at 11% or 9.5%. That's never been the case since COVID. And that's good. But I don't know, I always remind myself that trying to figure out what's going to happen tomorrow, it's complicated. And it's something that we really have to think carefully about on how we want to implement that, whatever that number might be. Chris has put together a budget, which I have not seen, but is being sent to me.
Yep.
Which shows a 5% increase. And let's just say the numbers work, meaning revenue approximates expenses. But it doesn't really provide much of a cushion if revenues decline or if expenses are higher. Then we have a problem. And I'm not suggesting that that we should think about that 5% won't work. It's just there has to be an understanding going into it that we have cushion in our debt coverage ratio. Our debt coverage ratio has always been above 1.15 to 1. If we miss on the revenues or miss on the expenses or miss on both, we get much closer to 1.15. The other thing that becomes somewhat of a drag is our cash balance. And a low cash balance easily triggers a problem with operations, but also with the debt coverage ratio. And our cash, as we saw in the presentation earlier, is that cash is declining. And we're using up long-term funds that were from the bond issue, 5 years ago, 4 years ago. So while there's nothing wrong with that, we know the intent was to always use that. We have about 2 million left in there, less about 500,000 that within the next few days is being used. But we also have a reserve which has about $10 million in it. But it gets very complicated, I think. When you're not covering, when you're not replacing cash and covering the debt coverage ratio, it could all come back to bite us. So again, I think part of the solution should be looking at one of these other ways of raising more cash. Not necessarily doing it across the board, 5% or 8% or 2%, whatever it might be, which has been done over the past few years. I think you all remember that it was 3 years ago, we moved folks from the large user rate, or from the, what I'll call the residential rate, the base rate, into the tier 1 of the large user rate, simply by changing the definition of what that would be. I think that's something that might be considered again, or having kind of some kind of a surcharge. There's a lot of different things on that list, and I think it's a matter of coming up with the right number and an explanation for that number.
I wrote Bill and Joe an email admitting that I think Joe Coffey has finally convinced me that it costs us more to deal with sewage than it does with drinking water. And yet we charge the same rate. And in listening to Bill Simcoe talk about all the money the sewer treatment plants are going to be spending, I said maybe we ought to have a surcharge on the sewer side or increase the sewer rate. I just throw that out as an idea for people to think about. And we can blame it on the county because
Chris,
their costs are going to go way up.
Chris actually did I wouldn't say it's more than a back of the napkin. It was a little bit of a review of the difference between sewer and water. Sewer is slightly more expensive, 52.48, something like that.
Yeah.
But we know we're likely gonna see that delta rise a little bit with the county sewer tax or the county sewer bill going up a little bit. So that's one element we can look at, get some differentiation on those. But I think some of your other points that Bill raised on, not just this year, but years past about, are there other elements of our program that can be broken out to some extent and reflected in some element of our fee schedule? We can look at that. Certainly the changing the threshold from going residential to tier 1, that had, I think, a meaningful impact. So I just think we need to take a group, get a group working internally to look at these different things, spend some quality time on it, come back with some concrete recommendations at the next board meeting. You and Bill and Bill Pack, we've got some of the things that you learned down in Orlando. We can look at what of our best practices, what do our peer utilities do to get recovery, expense recovery. We got a lot of that services we're committed to. All that's going to get done with grant money or bill money. We know that. So we just need to look at that as well. That's a big element of expense for us on the horizon. And it's got to get done within a certain time frame. So that's a type of a fee that could actually sunset. Not that the term sunsets, but that's one thing that frankly theoretically could sunset.
And I'll just add 2 more thoughts. I think it was Yogi Berra that said something like the future has become more complicated now that making a prediction has become more complicated now that it involves the future.
Right. Well, when you get to the fork in the road, take it.
Right. And, but I think I don't think there'll be a period in the near future where there will not be significant rate increases. I mean, I know that's not what you want to hear, but, there are a lot of things going on. And one of the assumptions that I make when I look at the numbers is that Bill's presentation is funded by EFC, either directly or through grants or debt. The debt hurts us because of the debt coverage ratio. But if we had to add a few $1 million, we begin to have a problem.
Yeah.
One of the things, Chuck, that Chris and I talked about is with the models that we had and with, I think we have quality information. We talked to some of our large users on what their future plans are. So we had a little bit of a look ahead on their end, like nanotech, et cetera. We know Wadsworth moving to the campus. We need to spend more time looking at what OGS and their planning people are forecasting for the government. I mean, frankly, that's a large part of our using things. And we really want to spend, not just talk about the rate increase for 2026. What do the future rate things look like based on the predictive models? We've got quality information now, better information than we had 3 years ago. And I think we need to rely on that and come back to the board. It's not just 2026. What are we looking at in the long term to address some of those questions?
Yeah, well, our debt service goes from under 10,000 a year or 10 million a year today to over 20 million a year by 2030 to 35. That's something to plan for.
Yeah, of course. How do we get that money? Nope, that's what the model's gonna help us look at for predictive rate increases.
A 1%, whatever it's worth, a 1% increase is an annuity forever in every year for about $45,000.
More than 50,000.
45, 50, you know, in that range.
450.
450. Yeah.
Yeah.
And also, I can't help but think about over the past few years, certainly last year and the year before, in which there were 2 10% increases, no one from the public came to the hearing. So I don't know, maybe that says something.
Certainly no big users, if ever.
Right.
I'm a big believer in never say never, but it's a point, and I think, we're still affordable.
Yes.
But I think it's always in the context of percentages that scare people, it's not in the absolute dollars. And I think that's part of messaging that we work on with Steve. When we look at this information, how do we present this to the public so that it's in a meaningful form without scaring people? It's not as big a deal as we may think it is.
Yeah, I think with Beaver Creek done, that added $20 million net to our long-term debt. That's huge. Most of our other projects, none of our grants are not going to be anywhere near that. It's 1 million, 2 million, 3 million. So the hope is there's not another consent order of a massive project of that size that would blow up our long-term
But
debt,
there are the 2 dam projects.
Yeah.
which we're not starting unless there's some sort of grant, that it's covered. But something like a consent order, your hands are tied.
Okay, will we move on? Thank you, Bill. I look forward to the October meeting. Laura?
My first point, I know we've had a long meeting, but my first point I'd like to take into an executive session just when we maybe wrap up resolutions. Second point is the purchase of about 122 contiguous acres in Queens. That's what we have been calling the Heath property. And that's another WQIP acquisition similar to the Brat acquisition, which is 0.3 of my update. I had thought, so you probably saw a first iteration of the agenda that had a Hickey, had a resolution for the Hickey property. We're not quite there yet. We have one appraisal that has come back. We're seeking another appraisal as well. I flag it as an update right now for the board because it's going to be an acquisition of over 100 acres. This is going to require a more in-depth environmental review. This is one that will likely be classified as a type 1 action under seeker. So I flag it now. We're not quite ready for board approval, but just putting it on your radar. It's an exciting prospect of an acquisition for sure. So then 0.3 is a seeker resolution for the Brat acquisition. This is acquisition of 2 parcels in Westerlo. I've reported on this for the board previously. But that encompasses about 32 acres. So we are classifying that as an unlisted action. For the board, that's our second resolution on the agenda. Not much to say other than the action that the board is taking is to acquire property. No other construction or other plans for the property other than for source water protection. So it will, my recommendation is for the board to adopt a negative declaration that this will have an insignificant adverse impact on the environment. And then the 4th item is the City of Albany sends out its annual compliance training. That is the sexual harassment prevention training that comes out in October with a demand that you get it done by the end of the year. So look for that email from either.
All the emails are out.
Oh, they came out already.
They came out last week.
Earlier this week.
Beautiful.
I took the course on Monday.
Okay.
It's gotten better and better. It's only about an hour and a half and it's much simpler to use.
Perfect. Okay.
Yeah.
I'm glad I have that.
Do it early and get it done.
Yeah, that's right. And that's it for me, other than just a request to enter into executive session.
Okay.
Thank you.
Steve?
I'll be fast as I can. Okay, August, the only consistent is inconsistency is how I'm gonna kind of lead this one in today. Facebook was up and Instagram was down as far as our engagement is concerned. But that's okay. We're still seeing engagement across the platform. People are still enjoying what we're putting out there. They like to see the work that we're doing across the city, especially the people that are doing it. And I think that's the most important part. The communicators are uniting. So down here in the bottom corner here, so across the city, a position similar to mine here is starting to scale through other departments. We're starting to get together. We're starting to talk. We're starting to really kind of become dotted lines to each other in some ways in terms of how we're communicating and helping one another out with pushing out our messages across the city to just kind of help scale things out for the public. So in August, top post was a trivia post. So what I did was I was trying to drive traffic back to our website, and Paul Benke did a great history of the water department piece, and so we put that up there. And so I threw it up on Reddit and was like, hey, if anybody can tell me the answers to these questions, the first 5 get a free water bottle. And I got flooded. And we had 13,000 views.
No pun intended.
And yeah, no pun intended. Yeah, thank you. And so it was a really great engagement. I got a lot of comments from people back saying, this is awesome. You guys are great. Like, I love the water department. So it was a really very positive piece that went out there. And it was just a lot of fun, actually. Some of the answers were hysterical.
Steve?
Yes, sir.
Can you send some of those to some of us on the board who don't do Reddit, Facebook? Can you
Send you one.
send them as an email, like the thing you posted?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
Yeah,
I
no
think
problem.
that'd be good for the whole board.
Yeah, we'll do that.
Okay.
Yeah. So we've got stories in every report, right? We with a lot of fishing in August. We had this guy here, Andrew Plumador, had some nice catches. We kept getting quite a few different photos from some other fishermen, from our security crews that are out there. They got a lot of really great engagement, and if they have an account, I like to try to tag them They do a lot of sharing and kind of, it's like a little bit of recognition. So it went pretty well. On the horizon, schools are in session. Really for that green light there. And local water matters day. We're kind of working through that. I'm waiting on Joe, I think, for just a little bit of information from some other people.
They don't want you to go out to plant. They got construction going on. It's dangerous.
Yeah, and we're waiting to see pretty much how we're looking at that. And just some quick social demographics. I never showed these before, but just to give you an idea kind of who our audience really is on social media. Women are about 60%, men about 40%. Our biggest age bracket is 35 to 44 in there. So that's just kind of what we're looking at. So we've got some more projects that are going up. September's gonna be a really exciting month. We'll be able to get some good things. So just anybody have any questions? Great. Thank
And
you.
you've been doing neighborhood association meetings as well.
Yeah, yes, I've been doing neighborhood association meetings. I did one in August and I did another one, or no, both, sorry, we're in September. I'm looking to try to get some more, talk about the water quality report, bring somebody in from the lab. And so they can kind of answer some of those more technical questions. We've been received very well, and they're all very happy to have a city department come and talk and happy to do that, so.
You did a talk last week.
Yeah.
And you took some, and nobody asked you about Florida.
Nobody.
I had one at the same one that Rafat and I did, and it's the same issue.
Yeah.
Maybe. Thanks, Steve.
Thank you.
I had a horrible day yesterday. My power went out, Karen lost her ability to work emails. You all didn't get resolutions until late last night. I had to do a eulogy for a dead friend and I wrote it when the power went out. I lost it. It was a nightmare. I had construction going on at the house. It was a horrible day. I went to dinner, a fundraiser for Mohawk Land Conservancy, and guess who my dinner partner was? Laura. It made my day. And she's agreed, because the resolutions were late,
Yes.
that she's gonna read them.
Yes.
And explain them to us.
Yes, okay.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Resolution 2565. This is authorizing an extension of master services agreement with CT Mail. I'll read the therefore clause and add some color and have some questions. So now therefore be it resolved, the Albany Water Board hereby exercises the second extension of the term of the MSA with CT Mail and hereby acknowledges that there remains a final extension of the term of the MSA with CT Mail. And this is one that we just missed the second extension on. We've been working with them, we just missed the second extension. Commissioner noted during the earlier part of the meeting that we're gonna make sure that we're on the same schedule of all of our MSAs by the end of this year. So this language that says there's another extension doesn't, you're not bound to it. It's just something I wanted to note for the record that there is a final extension.
Any questions? Comments? May I have a motion to approve? So moved. Second, all in favor? Aye, motion carried.
City's resolution number 2566, adopting negative declaration under seeker concerning the acquisition of certain real property for source water protection. Now therefore be it resolved, the Albany Water Board hereby A, designates itself lead agency, B, classifies the acquisition of the BRAC property as an unlisted action under 6 NYCRR section 617.2 AL. C, adopts the EAF Annex Tier 2 as Appendix A and authorizes the chairman, commissioner, or deputy commissioner to execute parts 1, 2, and 3 of the EAF. D, issues a negative declaration for the acquisition of the BRAC property, determining that the acquisition does not have a significant adverse impact on the environment. And E, authorizes and directs the publication of a notice in the environmental notice bulletin relative to this resolution. It's to do with an upcoming closing on the BRAC property, which again is really exciting. Classifying as an unlisted action, the actual acquisition itself won't change the use of the property. It will not have an adverse impact on the environment.
Any question? Have a motion to approve? Second, all in favor? Aye. Motion carried.
Last one, resolution number 2567, resolution authorizing disbursement to Gray Point LLC for quarterly investment advisory services for second and third quarters, $5,000, let's see. Now therefore be it resolved that the Albany Water Board authorizes payment to Gray Point LLC in the amount of $5,000 for quarterly investment advisory services for the periods of April 1st, 2025 through June 30th, 2025, and July 1st, 2025 through September 30th, 2025, annexed here too as Appendix A.
Good. And motion to approve?
Then 5,000 for the. Each
Report.
Yeah. It's 2,500 per quarter. The first quarter, the check got kicked back. They couldn't read my writing. It's my fault. So we did it again.
Motion to approve? Move, second, all in favor? Aye. Motion carried. Do we have any new business to bring before the board? Oh, all right. So I guess we need to go into an executive session.
We just need a motion to do that, and
For
not
the purpose of.
for the purpose of pending litigation.
Motion approved. Second, motion carried.
Stuff.
Back on the ballot.
Steve,
Does it come out? Yes.
Yeah, I don't know if it'd be a little delayed.
Back there.
Okay.
May I have a motion to come out of executive session?
Yep.
Second, all in favor? For the record, no action was taken. We had a good discussion. There's no other business before the board. I'd like to remind you all that our next board meeting is Friday, October 24th at 9 a.m. And there'll be a finance committee meeting at 8:30. And again, Anthony apologizes for not being with us today. He had a very serious family illness in his family. Having said that, can I have a motion to adjourn? I'll move. Second? All in favor? Aye. We're adjourned. Thank you all very much.